Mary Crockett. I am a marriage and family therapist, and I am the founder of Evolve Healing House. Please forgive the train in the background. Of course, it will want to come by as I start the video. Nonetheless, here we are. So I'm gonna make this as casual as I can. I don't like stuffy videos. I really like to give people the knowledge that they need, but also I don't want to drag it out. I don't want to make it super boring. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about IFS, internal family systems, and I'm also going to be talking about IFS and couples work because I integrate the two. I feel as if IFS is great for people who have been through a lot of trauma, want to know themselves a little bit deeper than kind of surface level, want to know their partner a little bit deeper than surface level. Be going over IFS, the different parts in this video. I probably will make this a kind of continued series if people are interested, but for this video specifically, I'm just going to kind of be winging it, so to speak. There is no real outline, so I'm sorry, but the intention for the video is to go over the parts, integrate a little bit of the couple's knowledge and how that could be useful to know each other's parts and how each other's parts could potentially trigger one another. And I think that's going to be it for this video. And if you're interested in another video, comment, let me know, and I will make another one. So we're gonna get started. For people who don't know about internal family systems, it is a theory that basically, the way that I describe it, to keep it short, is it is a theory that uses the parts language. So when people say, part of me feels this, or part of me feels that, you know, I feel like I have a devil on one side and an angel on another side, that kind of language that people use, it goes into that, but in a lot more depth. So you get to identify the somewhat like angel parts, the somewhat devil parts, shadow parts, whatever language you like to use. I try not to overly complicate it with clinical language, because I know everyone just doesn't know the clinical terms and won't likely remember them. So this is going to be a very casual, easy to understand language video. So if you want more clinical terms and clinical language, I could do a workshop for you, but for now, I just want everyone to understand what I'm saying. And yeah, I'm not going to make it too overly clinical for you guys. So this video is for the general public too, so everyone just doesn't have the time to understand everything. Okay, so internal family systems use part languages, and basically it says in order for you to be kind of in your self energy, not in your part of you angel, part of you devil, part of you whatever, in order for you to be you, zen, balanced, in control, calm, confident, courageous, creative, all the 8 C's, right? In order for you to be that, you have to lead with being yourself, being authentic, being true to you. But you also need to know what parts of you that are being activated or triggered, what parts of you are being reactive, what parts of you are being protective, and where is that coming from. So it's a very deep dive into the psyche of you, the personality of you, the behaviors of you. And when you are being your zen, calm, confident, courageous, authentic self, and when you are being more reactive, or when you are being protective, and when you are kind of just regressing into something that is called an exile, which is your like heavily burdened self, usually childhood traumas or childhood wounds that make you feel small or make you feel just heavily wounded. So we're gonna go over all 3 of the parts titles. So we're gonna start with the managers. So your managers are your protective parts. I like to start with the managers because the managers are easier for people to see. They see their managers often because they are often managing their life. And again, these parts are a part of you, but they are also not always you, right? You're not always managing something at every given moment. But they are helpful. A lot of the times these managers are good at keeping you alive, good at keeping you going and living life. They're very protective, depending on how they're being used. So I always like to say, when people realize that they have a lot of managers, they kind of freak out. And I sometimes say, it's not how many parts you have, it's how are they being used, when are they activated, and are you completely blended with this part to where you don't really know, right? Have you just been always managing and you don't really know who you are, right? If that is the case, if you don't know what self-energy or being authentic to you and not leading out of protection or reactivity or trauma looks like for you, then we have to just name the parts and try to get to self-energy, and notice that we're usually managing a lot, or we're usually more reactive, or we're usually just kind of heavily burdened, and that's our norm. So I'm gonna go over the managers. There's a few, so I'm gonna just read off the cards because I don't have them all memorized, and I also can show you the imagery. Okay, so we are going to start with the busy bee. Okay, the busy bee, there we go. So the busy bee, this part keeps busy with work, task, projects, and avoid stillness. Okay, so I'm gonna say it again. The busy bee. This part keeps busy with work, task, projects, and avoids stillness. That is the busy bee. Okay. I might have to take the cinematic off, but that is the busy bee. The stoic. This part is focused on staying calm and composed in the face of adversity. The stoic. So I'm gonna be real honest with you. A lot of therapists have this part. Okay. The gatekeeper. This part controls access to feelings, emotions, and memories. So the gatekeeper. The rescuer. This part is consumed with helping others resolve their problems. The rescuer. This part in particular, if you resonate with this part can cause a lot of issues in relationships because if someone in the family, let's say one partner or the other, is always rescuing someone outside of the family, outside of the relationship, the other partner can feel burdened by having Superwoman or Superman as a partner, right? They take on the extra weight that comes with having to fit the role, or it's interesting because it could be a few things. It could be they have to be like the sidekick to Superwoman or Superman or the rescuer, or they have to be invisible somewhat because everyone else's needs comes first. And usually one or the other becomes an issue because eventually the partner does feel invisible, or the partner gets burnt out and wants more care, right? Depending on the season, maybe the partner goes through something where they feel like they need rescuing, or they just need a little extra attention, and because this person who's always in this rescuer manager is consistently in that role and playing out that part in their life, that they don't see it, that they don't see their partner needing help, or they just don't have the time or the energy to give it to their partner, and it creates a lot of conflict in the relationship. And so the rescuer comes up a lot in my couples therapy sessions just because it's very common. Okay. The overachiever, so this part is driven to achieve goals and succeed. This part is just the person who's kind of always reaching a goal, always setting something new. The goalpost is always moved. Sometimes that's in a relationship, or sometimes that's just in their personal life, and it can make it hard for one partner to then want to say, I just want to relax with you. I want you to be happy with where we are. I want you to be present. And you keep moving the goalposts. I don't feel like anything that you achieve actually makes you happy. You don't really find joy in these goals, and it could be exhausting for the partner. Okay, then we have the planner. This part thinks ahead and plans for every possibility. Yeah, so we're gonna keep going. The controller, this part may exert control over self, others, or the environment. So that is the controller. The perfectionist, so this part has high standards and expectations, driven to achieve excellence. So as an A+ up there. Then we have the caretaker. This part is nurturing and takes on a lot of responsibility and obligations, often prioritizing others' needs and neglecting its own needs. So this is the caretaker. The caretaker also has a lot of issues in relationships because eventually the caretaker needs something, and if their partner doesn't give it to them or misses the cue, it can create a lot of exhaustion on top of whatever they are already doing. So it can create emotional exhaustion and maybe even physical exhaustion if they are actually physically caretaking for family or whoever it is that they caretake for. Okay, the pleaser. So this part seeks to please others, often at the expense of own needs and desires. So this is, you're a yes woman or yes man. And the critic. So this part can be harsh, judgmental, and critical. And that is the critic. The critic is a part that also often comes up. Right? If you identify with the critic, sometimes people in relationships who have a partner that is very critical, or both partners are critical of each other, they don't feel emotionally safe after a while because they feel like they're always going to be judged. They can't really do anything right. So they stop sharing, or they kind of walk on eggshells over time, and it makes the relationship start to deteriorate because no one really wants to be criticized all the time. Like, that's not a relationship. That's a coach or a parent, right, who is trying to guide you or get you towards a goal that you are trying to set, but not necessarily a partner who loves and supports you and wants to see you just be happy, be present. Okay, so those are the managers. If you have identified with any of them, if you've identified with all of them, if you've identified with one or two of them, it doesn't matter, right? They're yours to know, but I do want you to take into consideration that there are no bad parts. It just is what it is, right? It just is what it is. And we'll talk about the process of the steps to not being in managers all the time, or not being in firefighters all the time, not feeling exiles all the time. But for now, just know it is what it is. It is okay. I'm gonna hold your hand. I'm gonna hold your hand and say it is okay if you have any of these parts. Everyone has parts to themselves. So it's okay. We can't really pick and choose the parts that we have. We just have them. And they have also served you, right? They have also served you in a way that keeps you alive, keeps you safe, keeps you protected, and sometimes in a very unique way, right? It could also be detrimental to you long term, but you know, our body, our brain tries to protect us in a way that's going to keep us alive today. And if that's something that in the long term tears you down and doesn't end in that result, we're not thinking like that. We're thinking in survival, and we're thinking in what is going to work for us now, right? So can we manage what's going on today? Can we react to what's going on today? And if that's not what you want to react out of or be out of, then we just gotta focus on being a little bit more self-led and being authentic and centering ourselves in who we are at our core, not the parts of ourselves. So now we're gonna jump into our firefighters. So these are the parts of you that are the more reactive. So I like to say when you're done managing, right, when you're exhausted, you can't plan anymore, or you can't critique anymore, you can't perfect anything else, you have, right, you can't be stoic any longer, and you need to react or feel like you have reached your wits end with something. These are the parts that come online, so to speak, your more reactive parts that try to protect you from whatever's going on in the moment. Okay, so we have a few firefighters. So we're gonna start with the numbing addict. This firefighter is kind of our most, I'm not gonna say most common, but it's pretty common. So a lot of people identify with this part. This part numbs overwhelming emotions through addictive or compulsive behaviors. So this could be anything that you can't seem to stop doing or continuously think about, right? So it's also a numbing. So it could be alcohol, it could be consistently scrolling on social media, it could be consistently thinking about, well, no, it's not gonna be that. We're just gonna go with the two examples of consistently scrolling or drinking. Those are kind of like the numbing ones, okay? Then we have the escapist. So this part may escape or disconnect from reality. This part may also disassociate. So for those of you who don't know what disassociation is, I want you to think about when you're driving and somehow you end up from point A to point B and you're like, how did we get here so fast? That is when you like end up disassociating, right? So time kind of just zooms past you and your kind of mind just goes into autopilot. You zone out, so to speak. So everyone has the ability to disassociate. It's just what level. On a very extreme level, you have people who have dissociative identity disorder, which is having multiple personalities, and having DID. That is also developed when you're very young, and you grew up in very traumatic situations. So you're put in a very, very, very traumatic situation to force your mind to kind of split into personalities to feel like you're keeping yourself safe. Most people do not have DID, okay? So do not feel like you have DID because you have parts. Most people are not split into personalities, okay? DID is uncontrollable, and, well, not uncontrollable, but DID is extreme. DID is extreme, and it comes from extreme trauma at a very, very, very early age, okay? So back to disassociation. So there's a spectrum. People disassociate by just kind of staring off into space, and they kind of stop feeling their body. They sometimes they feel like they're outside of themselves, or they're just not connected to their feelings, emotions, body sensations. So that is where the term grounding comes from. So when someone doesn't feel like they're in their body, they kind of feel disconnected from themselves, they would need to physically ground themselves to come back to themselves, by sometimes like actually touching the ground, make sure that they can feel their feet on the ground, make sure they can feel the air in their lungs, making sure that they can smell, like stimulating the five senses to kind of get them back to themselves, back to kind of like back to baseline and back in their bodies. So yeah, so that is the escapist. Then we have the volcano. So this part has angry outbursts or aggressive behaviors. And this is the volcano. I don't think I showed the escapist, so I'm sorry. This is the escapist. And this is the numbing addict. Okay. Then we have the analyst. So this part, actually that's more, so this is in the wrong category, but I'm gonna talk about it since I just said it. So the analyst is a manager. So the analyst, this part analyzes and evaluates situations and makes objective decisions rather than emotional ones. So this part is kind of very avoidant. And I think also there may be another manager in here. Maybe not. Okay. So this is the analyst. This one is kind of like, I'm going to use logic and intellectualize this thing because I don't want to think with emotions. I want to think with really good decisions, right? So that's the analyst. Okay, then we have the justifier. So this part rationalizes and justifies behavior. Okay, so this is the justifier. This part gets people in trouble in relationships, right? If you have a partner who can always justify something, it quickly dismisses and makes the partner who kind of just wants to be seen, just wants to be heard. It makes them feel like they, again, emotionally cannot be safe with this person because they're just going to come up with an excuse, or they're just going to come up with a justification as to why something happened, or they're going to just think their way through it instead of sitting with them, seeing them, understanding them, feeling them, and validating them. So the justifier part gets people in trouble a lot. Okay, then we have the denier. So the denier, this part may deny or refuse to accept reality. Yeah, this part is pretty big in our society. A lot of people are in denial because to face reality is a lot, right? It's a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in people's lives, and sometimes it's just easier to deny things for them because it feels safer. So the denier is very big. It's also very harmful in relationships when you have someone that's in denial about something, because it makes the person who is kind of sitting in the reality of the situation, sitting in the reality of the problem, it makes them feel like they're going crazy, and it makes them feel like they are being gaslit. When sometimes the person isn't intentionally gaslighting the other person, they're in denial. They're in denial heavily, and to come out of the denial would be devastating because it could trigger an exile of theirs. And so they rather just protect themselves by denying. So denial is a big one, and denial is very hard because, again, to get someone to step out of denial is a lot of work, and can be very scary for the person who is in denial. Okay, this is why they say the first step to realizing you have a problem is saying you have a problem, and how that is kind of the hardest part for a lot of addicts, because right, if they're not in denial, then they have to acknowledge all the damage that's being caused and how hard it is to take the steps to not cause so much damage and to take care of themselves and all that comes along with recovery. So it's sometimes easier to kind of just stay in denial for as long as possible. Okay, then we have the dramatic. So this part may express themselves through dramatic emotional displays or attention-seeking behaviors. Okay, so that is the dramatic card. The dramatic is I like to tie the dramatic to someone who says, well, they don't hear me unless I take it to this level, right? They have to be rhetoric and dramatic. They have to put on a show or make a scene for their partner to see them, and they go all out, right? They go all out to get their partner's attention, to dramatize how they're feeling and what they need, because some other way that they were trying to manage the situation was going overlooked and wasn't working, and so they get tired, they exhaust the manager part of themselves, and they become dramatic. And because people become dramatic, it could be very overwhelming, right? When someone is being so dramatic, depending on what the scenario is, it can be very dysregulating. Okay, then we have the bully. So this part may use shouting, screaming, emotional blackmail, or threats to get its own way. So that is the bully. Yeah, that one's kind of straightforward. Then we have the clown. So the clown, this part uses humor, sarcasm, or jokes to lighten the mood. The clown is, it's funny because the clown has, the clown is good until it's not, right? So if someone is sarcastic or tries to make a joke in the wrong moment because they're trying to lighten the mood because they feel uncomfortable or someone else feels uncomfortable in the moment, but that's not what the other person needs, and it can feel very dismissive if you make a joke or you try to lighten the mood as a reactive thing. It can worsen the situation because the other person could feel like you're making fun of them or you're not taking things seriously. When some people, they have the clown part, and so that's just how they cope with something that is making them very uncomfortable. So they'll try to tell a joke and it just doesn't, it's not the right time, it's not the right place, it's not the right scenario. Okay, then we have the avoidant. So this part has a tendency to withdraw and avoid difficult emotions or situations, may also present as emotionally detached. This part is very popular in other theories. So very, very popular in attachment theory. People who identify with the avoidant who are just emotionally detached and withdraw and avoid, right? They can cause a lot of harm because they are protecting themselves, right? This is a protective part. So they are protecting themselves by avoiding, but it is causing a lot of hurt and pain because they're kind of leaving their partner out. They're shutting down. They are emotionally detaching from their partner who needs them to connect and show up for them. And it can cause a lot of dysregulation for people. Yeah, it can just cause a lot of dysregulation for people. So the avoidant is a popular one. So yeah. The self-injuring part, this part engages in self-harming behaviors. So this could be anything from SI to cutting to risky behaviors in general where there's a potential to harm yourself. So those are the firefighters. Yeah, those are the firefighters. So those are your more reactive parts. Usually your partner can identify your firefighters. And yeah, that's an interesting conversation to have with your partner, saying, well, do you see my firefighters? Do you see my reactive parts? And just sitting with that reality that you may have a few reactive parts that your partner sees and is affected by. And again, they're trying to protect you. They're trying to help you get through whatever it is that you need to get through in the moment, even if it is something that is going to deter you in the future and make it harder for you in the future. Right now, right, you're being reactive, and it just is what it is. It just is what it is. So again, your parts are just parts. So we're just gonna get the knowledge out there, and then we can talk about integration and healing a little bit later. But don't judge yourself too harshly on having reactive parts. We all have reactive parts. Move on to the victim. So these are the exiled parts. So these are your heavily burdened, wounded parts, the parts that don't really want to come online, don't want to feel the heavy burden. And so your managers and your firefighters do its best job to make sure you're not feeling and activating these parts of yourself all the time. Okay, so we're gonna get started. So we have the victim. So this part may feel victimized. Now, I'm gonna run and grab some water, and I'll be right back. Sorry, y'all. I was really thirsty. Let me take a moment. Okay. I was talking about the exiles. So the exiles are the parts of you that are heavily burdened, have a lot of childhood trauma potentially. These are your wounded parts that need protection. You don't want to be feeling your exiles all the time. They are exiled for a reason. You don't want to be feeling these parts of yourself kind of online all the time, because you wouldn't be able to get anything done. Your life wouldn't be productive. So your managers and your firefighters make sure that you don't consistently feel these parts of yourself come on and kind of feel the heavy burden. So we're gonna start with the victim. This part may feel victimized. So this is the victim. Interestingly enough, the victim is common, and the hard part about the victim in relationships is a lot of the times when you have a very long-term unhealthy relationship, both partners can have this part, right? Both partners can develop a part of them that felt like a victim at one point. And it's very difficult to have two victims in the room saying, I feel like the victim, because someone feels invalidated, right? It's very difficult for two victims who felt like each other has victimized each other to hold space for one another. And so when I get couples who both feel they have been victimized by their partner, it's very difficult to say, sorry, the video cut. So when I have two partners who both feel like the victim, it's very difficult for them to acknowledge that the other person also is a victim, right? Someone has to be the victim, and they take up a lot of space as the victim, and that begins to hurt the relationship because no one gets to be validated the way that they want to be validated as just the victim. And it also makes couples therapy a little interesting because when I say, well, do we want to remain the victim, or do we want to kind of step outside of this part of ourselves and try to see what the victim needs, and also see each other as the victim? That feels very threatening to some people. And so it can be very challenging when two people come in as the victim. We work through it and we figure it out together, but it is kind of the trenches a little bit, because it's really hard to have two victims in a relationship. The unworthy, so this part may feel worthless, not good enough, and like a failure. So this is the unworthy. The traumatized, so this part holds the pain of past traumas or abuse. So the traumatized. The invisible, this part may feel unseen, unheard, ignored, or dismissed. So I've mentioned this exile a few times, depending on what their partner's parts are. So if their partner is more of a rescuer, and they're too busy rescuing other people, this may trigger their partner's invisible part, and so their partner may begin to feel invisible, which can also bring up a lot of heavy past emotions or past feelings of previously feeling invisible or being invisible in some people's eyes. And so it can feel very heavy when the person that they love or the person that they are married to in a relationship with makes them feel invisible, right? So the invisible comes up a lot in relationships. Also with the avoidance. So if someone has a partner who is more avoidant, has a more avoidant part, and that part is active a lot, it can then make the other partner's exile come online and feel very invisible. And that feels very heavy to them because they want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, and depending on how long they felt invisible, how often they have felt invisible, if they get tired of managing, how they've gotten attention before or what they've done for attention, they may become reactive and dramatic, or just like the volcano part where they are more rageful and angry, or they may become a bully and bully the partner who is more avoidant because they're reacting because they can no longer manage and they are kind of running from feeling invisible, and they're demanding to be seen, right? Okay, then we have the shamed. So this part may carry the pain of being shamed or humiliated, and this is the shamed part. The despondent, this part is despairing and has lost hope, may even experience SI. Yeah, the despondent isn't always present, but I do feel like some people identify with this part when they are on the brink of divorce, and they come in just not hopeful at all. Like this is just their last hurrah to give it a chance, but they also are not optimistic. They're kind of just checking the box that needs to be checked before they say, this is over, because they feel so hopeless. Okay, the rejected. This part may feel rejected and isolated. Isolated is key on this one too, because they feel like they don't have anybody, also being rejected by the person that they love. And so the rejected can be really hard. The vulnerable. So this part may feel vulnerable and unprotected. So the vulnerable, I want you to think about like a little kid who desperately just wants someone to see them as being small and they don't know everything. They're trying to figure it out. They're being vulnerable. They're learning for the first time. And also they don't have someone to guide them, so they feel unprotected. I think that's a pretty decent description of how the vulnerable can feel. Not like just a simple, I'm being vulnerable, I'm telling you how I feel. It's more like, this is very new to me. I don't really know what I'm doing. I am trying to figure it out. I want you to be here with me to make me feel safe as I learn the world for the first time, or learn something new for the first time. And as I stumble and as I make it awkward, and as I show a part of me, right, the vulnerable part of me that needs protection. So yeah, the protection part for the vulnerable is very key. So if someone feels like they are vulnerable and unprotected, this vulnerable part is going to be more triggered than just being, in general vulnerable. They feel powerless and defeated. This is the powerless. The abandoned. This part may feel left behind, discarded, and unsupported. So this is the abandoned. The guilty. This part may feel guilt and self-blaming. The guilty, right, that feels guilt and self-blaming can feel guilt and self-blaming when they see that they have betrayed, right? They have betrayed their partner in some way. So the betrayed is the part that feels let down and betrayed. Or the guilty can feel guilty because they have abandoned their partner in some way, right? They didn't show up when they needed them to show up, or they were unavailable, or they just, were in their own world. It doesn't really matter the reasoning, just when someone has the part that feels abandoned, and the person, maybe after the fact, the person sees that, it can trigger the part of them that feels guilty. So the abandoned, this part may feel left behind, discarded, or unsupported. Okay, so usually when someone has the guilty part, sometimes it is because of something that they have done in the past that was harmful to others. Have the broken, so this part may feel broken and beyond repair. And lastly, we have the unlovable. So the unlovable, this part may feel unlovable or unworthy of love. Okay. And those are the exiles. So again, the exiles are pretty heavy. They are your traumatized, wounded, very raw parts of yourself that we don't like to look at, we don't like to hold. We like to exile and put and tuck away, right? We like to tuck them away and act like, we just move forward. We don't think about that. We don't talk about that. We just exile them. But they're still very much a part of you and easily triggered sometimes. They could be triggered by a song or a smell or a similar situation, or being around your partner who may have parts that are also triggered by your parts, right? And so the funny thing is, we have partners, and we usually pick partners who trigger parts of ourselves, and that's very common. It's very normal. Usually we are trying to heal in relationships. We are trying to look for safety in relationships and comfortability in relationships to be able to be seen and to be able to be vulnerable. And sometimes we pick the partners who are like our family members, who may have not treated us the best, or like that last person who may not have treated us the best. And we're trying to actively heal in relationships. We're trying to do it right this time. We're trying to be seen. We're trying to be loved the right way. We're trying to love the right way, in a healthy way. And without the tools, without the knowledge, just kind of winging it, like a lot of people are doing, it makes it very difficult. And it's okay to say that it's difficult. I personally think that psychology and relationship skills should be taught in schools. Like when people start developing relationships, honestly. So around like middle school, especially in high school, I think relationship skills should be taught, because we're kind of just telling people to wing it, and it's causing a lot of conflict and chaos and disarray. And you know, it's skills. It's something you learn. And if you didn't have the best role models, if you didn't have the knowledge, the access, whatever, if you didn't have it growing up, or if you still don't have it, that's why I'm doing this video, right? I want you to start somewhere. This is a more in-depth way of looking at you and looking at how you may trigger parts of your partner. But if you like IFS, if you like kind of this in-depth way of relating to your partner and learning about them and learning about yourself, then I suggest you check out IFS, read the books, right? You don't have to book a session to learn. I am a big advocate for people just reading a little bit more. They put it in the books for a reason. So they put it in the books, and then they charge you thousands of dollars to go to school to read books for a reason, right? It's in the books. You just got to read them and try to comprehend them. And You Are the One You've Been Waiting For, Applying Internal Family Systems to Intimate Relationships. This is by Richard Schwartz. And No Bad Parts is kind of where he goes over all of the parts. Let me actually just do it this way. So No Bad Parts is where he goes over all the parts, and You Are the One That You Have Been Waiting For talks about relationships and parts work. And so I think it's really good. But yeah, start here. I mean, this is a lot of information. Honestly, this is enough to get you started and make you feel confident. And you can reference these over and over and over again. He also does a lot of podcasts where he talks to so many different people, and find a video that you like of his and follow him, see how he breaks it down. There's a lot of free resources out there. But if you are interested in actually working with me, I am in North Carolina. I am virtual only. I do couples therapy. I also do individual therapy, but I am mostly advertising couples therapy because that is my niche at Evolve Healing House. So if you would like to integrate some parts work in your relationship, reach out to me and I will get you on my schedule and we can get started. If you are not in North Carolina, unfortunately, I cannot serve you, which is also why I'm recommending free resources and doing this video, because I still want people to have access to this information and kind of a pathway forward. So tell me what you think about it in the comments. I really like some feedback if you're open to it. And yeah, so that's it. I wanted to keep it kind of casual today, and I am a little bit out of breath, so I am going to go. But thank you for listening, and hopefully you come back for the next one. Also, please subscribe to my channel. Yeah, please, and thank you, so I can get more free information out there to people. And I think representation matters as well. So I know I was looking for someone who looks like me, and I'm pretty sure someone else is also looking for someone who looks like me to share information like this. So please subscribe so I can get more you know, people who feel comfortable learning and want to see someone who looks different. Okay, so anyways, that's all I gotta say, and thank you.